Closed captioning of this program is brought to you in part by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. My dog is a good dog because my dog goes to McCann's. McCannDogs.com.
Here in our training facility, we've helped more than 100,000 dog owners to overcome the same dog training challenges that you have. But tonight, we do this show for you. We want you to get involved, to ask your questions, and most importantly, we want to have some fun. So let's hop on board the training train. It's time to head on over to the train station. Every single week, we help nearly 1,500 dog training students to overcome their challenges in dog training, to know what to do when these unusual situations pop up, and to get through some of their most difficult struggles with their dog. One way that we know can really help is to have some of these memory hooks, something like an acronym. And in tonight's show, I've created an acronym to help you with your walking on leash training. And I'm hoping it's going to connect some ideas for you so that you can stop that pulling and overcome your walking training challenges. I'm Ken Steep.
I'm Cal McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs. I like the speedy opening. I like
speed.
I like just rushing. Let's get right into this. Let's fire through. I mentioned briefly an acronym that we're going to be talking about today. Totally made up, but it's going to help you reference some ideas and really give you a game plan for your walking training. We did a poll on our YouTube channel not that long ago, and I think maybe, I don't know, something like 15,000 people voted or something. It was really quite a huge number.
Wow.
But I know that a large majority of you guys are struggling with your walking on leash. And
so common.
Yeah, it's very common. This is something that a lot of people, tend to, have trouble with. But maybe more importantly, this is something that you can fix some of these little problems. You can set yourself up to be more successful. And the way you do that is to understand your dog's level of training, understand what the next step is so that you don't rush through this step. It's going to be really helpful overall in your training. Maybe this is your first time here. Maybe you've never been to the train station. If that's the case, I want you to drop new in the chat. We often like to get a sense of, how many of you guys it's your first time being here. If this is your first time, if you are going to drop new in the chat, you probably need to know that my name's Ken Steep. This is Cale McCann. We're professional dog trainers at McCann Dogs. And at McCann Dogs, we've helped more than 100,000 people to overcome the same dog training challenges that you have. So here tonight in the train station, we want to help you. We want to help you to overcome some of those struggles and challenges because I get it. I was in your position. I was that frustrated dog training student before I went to McCann Dogs many years ago. And it changed so much for me to really have a strategy. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, and I failed to plan. So tonight, let's give you a plan. Mm-hmm. Now, Cale, you've been McCann Dogs your whole life.
Yeah, it's hard not to be in it when you're a McCann.
That's right. Very true.
My family started the business way back when, about 40 years ago, and so I've grown up around dogs. I learned all about dog training from a really young age, and so I've seen a lot, I've learned a lot, I've done a lot, and it's really cool. We've spent years working on coming up with methods and training techniques that we have worked with thousands and thousands of people and dogs, and we're excited to share with you some of the concepts that we've learned over the years that really work with all types of dogs. And that's really important because a lot of people, especially when it comes to walking, I have a husky, my dog's just going to pull. Right. And any breed of dog can learn to listen well and can learn to like learning as well. It's all about the right motivation. It's all about how you're actually communicating to the dog that really makes a difference. And we always joke about this, we're McCann dog trainers. but we're really people trainers.
Yeah.
We're really needing to teach you how to teach your dog.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's on the end of the leash and you're the one that's interacting with the dog 24/7. So hopefully tonight you're going to take away a bunch of tips that you can utilize with your dog at home.
See a couple of our Heart Dog supporters, channel members, Charlotte Skidal. I hope I'm saying that right, Charlotte.
It's a great last name.
I also see Gabor Zavadi. I see Melissa McDaniel.
Nice.
Thank you guys for being Heart Dog supporters.
Hey.
I also just realized when I was looking in the camera and checking out our monitor, I got a haircut today, and I think I've wrecked it already. I had
How do you wreck a haircut?
I had my
that is
sunglasses
that
on
short?
when I was driving today, and I don't know. It's just not there. I was hoping to look sharp, be like high and tight here tonight.
You look sharp, hon.
Well, thanks. If this isn't your first train station, I know lots of you guys didn't put new in the chat, then you probably know what I'm going to talk about next. So you'll see in the chat, there's lots of names with a blue, their name's in blue. They have a little wrench beside their name. Those are some of our dog training instructors. You'll also see Dan the moderator man, lots of links Luton. He's been with us a while, and as of recently, we've actually been able to move Dan to a different location. You might recognize this location, but about 18 months ago, I launched a cell phone into space, and it reflects the signal
It's worse every
from
time.
here in the train station over to wherever Dan's moderation station is. So without any further ado, I'd like to head on over and see what Dan, Lots of Links Luton, is up to tonight. Let's hear from Dan. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. I feel like you're trying to show off
Look
the
at
fact
the screenshot
that I've
of your-
ruined that I've ruined my haircut already.
Look at the screenshot of your head in the back.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that little tuft off to the side there.
That's
is
it.
just- I didn't
That's
want
right.
to mention
You're
it.
so beautiful.
I'm frantically trying to fix it as I'm not on camera right now. But Dan, I want to know, last time you were on the train station, last 2 weeks ago, you actually gave all of the viewers an opportunity to save a little bit of money on hoodies, I believe. Do you have anything in store for the next 24 hours that these guys can get exclusively?
I sure do. So yeah, we did hoodies. We've done a bag this week. I figured walking on a loose leash, what better discount to give than our exclusive McCann Dogs leather leash.
Those are fancy
15% off.
leash.
They're awesome. We have one at home. Most of our trainers, if not all, have them. They're in our studio. They're in our hall.
That's it.
They're great. They're amazing. 15% off, 24 hours. Get one. Use discount code TRAIN TICKET.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Dan. And I think you're right. No better. There's something. I have my leash when I started digging 15 years ago. I have that same leash. You know, having a nice leather leash can really make a big difference. And it's just you just feel fancy.
Great.
You feel good about going out for a walk and showing off that leash.
I think
I
the
will get
better
in trouble,
point is that
Ken
the
and
fact,
Kale, if I don't say hello and good night to my daughters as well. So
Yes, that's a good idea.
I gotta do
yes.
that.
Good night, girls.
Get to
Night,
bed.
girls.
I know one of two, maybe 2 out of 3 are already in bed. So whoever's left, get to bed.
Amazing. Thanks, Dan. Well, you'll be hearing from Dan in the chat later in the show.
Lots of links.
Those the leashes are really the best though. Like
for
yes,
sure.
they look great, but they're so comfortable to use. So if you have a dog that does do a lot of pulling or it just has a little bit more give, I think it's better for the dog's body, better for the human's body. They're awesome and they last forever.
Totally agree. One thing we also like to do in the opening of our show, we have students from over 50 countries. You know, we have our local students. Somebody's dropped, Dominic, dropping the super chat already. I'm going to
Thanks,
grab
Dominic.
this. I'll come back to your question, Dominic. But we have students from over 50 countries, and I love finding out a little bit more about where everyone's joining us from in our online training classes.
Yeah.
Something we like to do here in the train station is ask you. It's time for a roll call. Where are you joining us from? I'd love to know. It also gives me an opportunity to do my romper room moment where I get to hold up the little invisible mirror thing and go through my shtick that Kale loves so much.
Yep, I sure do.
So let us know where you're joining us from. One thing that we've all discovered as dog trainers, helping some of these online students, is that no matter where you are in the world, you're probably having the same challenges as everyone else. So I don't want anyone who's out there thinking like, oh, my dog is so different. I just can't overcome this thing.
I bet they've never seen this problem
Never
before.
seen this before. Absolutely. But I'll tell you, you're not alone. There are lots of people who had this vision of this well-behaved, wonderful dog that they could take out on walks. They'd like have their Starbucks coffee or whatever you drink on your walk. Go out, nice fall walk. Leaves are coming down.
Is that how you walk?
You know, because I'm like really throwing some sass
You're really
into this walk,
grooving
for sure.
and moving there.
But then you get the reality is your dog's dragging you across the street, barking at everything that moves. It's just not what you imagined it would be. So don't fret. You can work through this. I did because I was in your situation. It's just going to take a plan. And in just a moment, we're going to get to that plan. Now, I want to say some big hellos here. A big hello to Pat Davidson joining us from Scotland. Bob Ross from Australia. Was that a good Scottish accent? Leslie from Virginia. Mrs. Y from Phoenix, Arizona. Tanya from Duffield. I see Maryland, Portland, Maine, Ancaster, not too far away, Diane.
Norma from my same old chair in Toronto.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Norma.
Hi, Norma.
Ms. Philly G from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I see North Carolina, Chicago, Australia, Windsor, Georgia, Florida. Polk, Nebraska.
Cool.
Virginia. A couple of people from Virginia. I see Acacia joining us from New Zealand. Let me know, Acacia, if I pronounced your name right. That's also something I find very interesting. Melissa from Virginia Beach. Charlotte from Houston, Texas. Northeastern Pennsylvania. Gabor joining us from Visalia, California.
Nice.
Heart of the Central Valley. Wisconsin. Saskatchewan. Oh no, it's going so quickly. Mountain Home, Idaho. Again this week. Thanks for joining us from Mountain Home. Karen. I see Wendy saying good day from Australia.
Someone said keeping their eyes open from Israel.
Oh,
maybe?
very cool. Yeah, it's probably quite late there. Yeah.
Polaris B. Half asleep in Israel. Thank you for staying up with us.
Thanks for staying up late here with us, all the way from Israel.
Awesome.
That's very cool. Now, we need to talk about this R.E.D.S acronym and how it's going to help you to have some memory hooks. Really plan your dog walking training. And having a plan is gonna. It's so funny because I think about all the things that I went through to try to teach my dog to walk on a loose leash. It didn't matter what the reward was. It didn't matter what the piece of equipment was. I was missing a couple of little steps, and we see it all the time. The students that come into our facility, the people that we coach from all over the world, there's often missing one little step, and really identifying what that challenge might be for your dog or for you makes a huge difference. The first thing that we're talking about in this R.E.D.S acronym is R. Is your dog ready? So we need to talk a little bit. We need to talk a little bit about what that means. What does that mean if your dog is ready or not? Wasn't that a song? Was Ready or Not a song, or maybe a show?
Ready or not.
It's not one I was thinking of, but not bad.
Okay.
So, foundation of understanding. Let's talk a little bit about what that might mean for you guys who are at home struggling. You're like, my dog just doesn't get it. I go out for a walk, never gets better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget is that walking on leash is actually something you need to teach your dog how to do. There are very few dogs that just you hook a leash on and they just merrily go down the street and, they don't pull and, they're wonderful. Some dogs do that, but not very often. Most dogs, especially young dogs, they're distracted by sounds and things and that leads to pulling on the leash. And if they don't really know that they have to listen to you or they don't really understand what leash respect is, they're just going to end up rehearsing pulling on a leash. So we have to remember that we don't want to be putting our dogs into a situation that's going to overface them before they're actually ready to go for a walk. So if you haven't taken the time to actually train your dog how to go for a walk, then you might be, just putting yourself in a situation where you're going to fail by taking your dog for a walk because they're not ready to handle that kind of distraction. I think a lot of people just think that I have a dog, well, I have to walk it. Well, when you have a dog, you actually don't have to walk it. What you have to do is exercise it. Yeah. And, we have all kinds of videos. We have all kinds of suggestions on what to do. So when we say to people, when you have a dog that doesn't know how to walk yet, stop walking your dog. People are like, oh, what do I do?
What does that mean?
My dog will be crazy. That's insane. How could you ever say that? But we don't mean don't do anything with them. We mean exercise them. There's other ways that you can develop relationship. You can develop skills. You can exercise your dog both physically and mentally. That has nothing to do with going for a walk. In fact, when we have a young dog, from 8 weeks when we get them up until, 6-7 months maybe, I don't take my dogs for any walks. I take them out and I socialize them, but we might go out and like work on a controlled sit at our side, or we might work on some response to name, or we might go to the park and work on some restraint recall. So I always am getting my puppies out and about and exposing them and socializing them. Our version of socialization is very different than other people's, but what I'm not doing is putting a leash on and then going for a walk around my block until my dog is trained to do that.
Right.
So a lot of the walking that I would end up doing would take place, you know, in the hallway or up and down the driveway when I get to that point. We'll get into that as we go along. But the biggest mistake that people make is they walk their dogs before they're ready to walk their dogs. I
want to just call out Dominic's super chat before we get too far into this. Your videos have helped me in my Pharaoh Hound area
nice,
so much.
Pharaoh Hound, that's cool.
I'm very glad you're doing this video live. This is one thing that we struggle with, along with getting into the car. Okay, Dominic, we're going to definitely talk. I mean, if that Pharaoh Hound is probably quite motivated by motion, things moving, that prey drive is probably quite high. So we're going to need to talk a little bit about preparing Aria before you get out into those situations, so that you've built a history of reward, so that Aria knows exactly where that you're worth listening to, even when a fluffy squirrel tail goes zipping by.
Yeah.
This is something that we talk about a lot with students who say something like, I can never get a loose leash. Doesn't matter what I do. The moment I step out the door, all of a sudden the dog's spinning around at the end of the leash. This was my struggle too. This is the thing that I didn't know what to do with. There was nothing that I could get her attention back with. And something that I learned training with McCann dogs, and I've actually got a clip. We're gonna go over some of that. Is get a win first. So if you have a dog that pulls the moment you get out the door, and maybe this is actually a good thing to talk about with you right now. If you have a dog who you go get the leash, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. The dog's like, "Oh, it's
there's my cue.
It's Walkie's time," bouncing around like crazy and just being an absolute nut bar. And then you clip on the leash. You're like, "Well, here we go for my walk, or might get dragged," and the dog continues that behavior. You step out the door, you get dragged down the street. What would it look like if you were to insist on a sit before you clip that leash on? There's no way your dog can get out the door, start dragging you down the street until at least you get a sit.
Yeah.
Start with a tiny win. Is your dog ready to step outside that door? They're not if you don't get a win first.
You also need to think about the fact too, is if your dog's like wild and crazy and you can barely get a leash under their collar, how do you expect that same dog to go out and walk nicely on a leash?
Right.
But if you start with the dog sitting in a little bit more focus, which might take you a few minutes to get to that point, but it puts the dog in a completely different mindset. It calms the dog a little bit more. If they can take treats for a couple seconds, if they can work a little bit of look at me, you're going to have a better opportunity to be successful when you do step out into some distractions, provided they know what they're doing. But what we don't want to be doing is reinforcing our dogs for, if they really like to go for a walk, and every time prior to going to a walk, they're bouncing off the walls and you're trying to wrangle them to get a leash, and then you go for a walk. The walk is actually a reward for the bouncing off the walls behavior. But if your dog learns, sitting and focused,
right,
that is what allows me to go out the door. Your dog's going to learn to do this. I literally did this with one of my dogs. We have several dogs here, and I have one young dog that is just manic about going outside. She cannot wait to go outside because she wants to go outside with all the other dogs and chase them, and she's really excited. And all my older dogs, they all understand not to barge into one another and push each other over. They go out of the door quickly, but they respect one another. And the younger dog at first did not. She would literally climb over top of them like she was in a mosh pit. So for her, she was not allowed to go unless she sat and waited and let all of the other dogs go out in front of her. And I had to work really hard at this because there was lots of times where I would open the door and she would try to fly out in front of them, and I would stop her with the leash. I would place her back into a sit. I would reward her and I would praise her. And then I would tell her, okay, and then let her go. And through doing this day after day after day, she started to understand that I was not going to let her go outside unless she was sitting and being calm. So I didn't even have to give her any treats. The act of going outside ended up being the reward. So you want to take something that your dog likes and you want to get something for yourself in return that is typically more respectful, calm-minded, and then you can use that fun thing as the reward.
Absolutely. We recently did a video with instructor Carol, that we had a dog that just really wanted to pull. She was just so full of life and energy and was really excited. And because she'd never worked with Carol, she didn't really, have any interest in listening and going for a nice walk. So instructor Carol took us through the foundational steps that I think you should be doing. If you are struggling with leash walking training at all, I want you to do this exercise with your dog the next time you go out, because it can make a huge difference. I'm going to go to that video. Let's check this out right here.
Freya's pretty excited to go out, and that's pretty common. Does your dog just want to explode out that door? Because going outside is fun. So if I open that door, you can see she's ready to blast. So I'm going to hold that leash so that she can't actually get out until she looks at me. And why do I care about that? She is so focused on the outside. Nothing else exists about getting through that door. If I just hold her here, it's like a magic force field. At some point, she's gonna stare out there and then she's gonna go, what the heck? And she's gonna look at me. And when she looks at me, I'm gonna immediately say, okay. So it's doing a couple of things. One, in order for her to look at me, she needs to control herself, which means she's not as wild. And two, she's learning there's some rules to going through that door. Are you ready, girly? What's out in the big?
And you can see, maybe your dog is like this. Let us know in the chat. If you have a dog like this, the moment the squeak happens or the door knob clicks, away from the catch, the dog goes out the door.
They're like, this door opening must be for me.
That's right. Yeah, it's party time. I can't wait to get out there. But what if the reward for your dog for doing a great job was to finally get outside? I mean, think about that. You're not just thinking about treats. You're not just thinking about toys. What if the reward was to get outside? What are they going to do to earn that reward?
I'm gonna hold her. Just gonna stand and wait till she decides. Good girl. All right, good girl. So last time I said okay.
Okay, let's head back. I don't know if I can restart at this point. So let's just talk from here. The other thing I think a lot of people miss is we've been talking about getting your dog in a sitting position. What if that was the first win? Well, that's a great thing. But in this case, the reason Carol waited longer is even though Freya was in a sit, Freya's brain was out that door
Still
already.
Going outside.
Yeah. Did you guys see that? Like, did you recognize that moment? Does that feel like your dog? Like, sure, they're doing stuff, but they're not really doing it for me. They're just kind of doing it because they know they have to sit and wait before whatever happens. If you can identify those moments with your dog where it goes from just putting, just punching the time card versus like putting in a little bit of effort, that's going to make a massive difference in your dog training. Huge difference. And that's exactly what instructor Carol did.
Okay, and she got to go out just for looking at me. So that's great. She's a little calmer when she does that, and she's starting to learn. Don't just blast out, you need to look. And that will happen really, really fast.
Also remember to subscribe.
Again, but she also needs to learn, after the look, when I say all right, it doesn't mean dive bomb out and drag me out. So if that happens, all it means is I'm going to come back in. She didn't earn her win. She didn't get to win the game and go out, go directly to jail, back inside, do not pass go, do not collect $200. We just try it again.
You notice that we're not yelling at the dog. We're not saying no, 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 or don't pull. We're sort of letting the dog figure it out. And we call, there's lots of different tactics that we'll use to teach dogs. We'll use luring. We'll use all kinds of things. This particular tactic is what we call rule outs. And it's a situation where we present the dog with a decision that it's up to them to make. And if they make the wrong one, like pulling on the leash, the dog doesn't get to... they don't get to get any type of reward. So there's no satisfaction about making that choice. They do it and they sort of say, well, I'm not getting anything from this. Right. So then the dog says, well, maybe I should try something different. And then they, on their own, decide to sit, or on their own, they decide to look. You'll see Carol didn't say sit. She didn't say look at me. She basically put it in Freya's corner to figure it out. And she would have waited 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it took for the dog to finally say, are we not going outside? And as soon as the dog changed the behavior, and then Carol was able to say, yep, that's a great decision. Here you go. Here's your reward. The dog starts to go, this behavior earns me this reward. But you let the dog figure it out. And this is a really great way to teach self control. This is an excellent thing to do with any age of dog. So you can do this with puppies. You can also do this with dogs that are older because it's a natural problem solving ability. You just have to remember that dogs learn within 1 second. So once your dog does give you the behavior that you're looking for, it is important that you're reinforcing quickly in order for your dog to put it together.
Usually our content on YouTube is pretty vanilla. You know, it's pretty good for everybody. It's usually pretty easy to understand.
General. It's general.
Very general.
Yeah.
I feel like I think we can take a little like this, for example, we can take a little bit deeper dive. Let me know in the chat if this is making sense to you, if this is lining things up for you, because I mean, we can really take the deep dive off of this and just give you some really straightforward basic examples and answers. But I feel like the last couple live streams, you guys have been so good about asking great questions. Type yes in the chat if this is kind of on the level you want to think about this, if this is how the depth we want to go to, because to be honest, even if you're not thinking this is where I want to be, this is where you need to be if you're struggling with a skill that's just persistent.
Totally.
Let's dive back into the video.
To wait it out, they all look at some point.
Sort of have to use an exercise in patience here.
That's right.
Freya's like, look at all these birds, but why can't I go anywhere?
And this is where people say, well, my dog's not listening. I don't know.
All right.
Yes, there we go.
Oh, here. Not like that. We don't
So
go
great
outside
example.
like that.
Carol's standard is, that's not quite it, buddy. Like you did the first part great.
And she says, oh, that didn't
But
get
she,
me
she
outside.
fooled all of us.
The dogs
We
are
thought, okay,
smart
she's
at
gonna leave.
figuring out how to get what they want. So now I'm just going to open that door again.
Oh, good girl. She's sitting faster.
That's right,
All
and
right.
looking faster.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, almost. Okay, we're getting closer though. You can see that she's not insisting
Yeah.
on dragging Carol
I
down.
think that is a good point,
So
though.
I'm
Some
not
people,
getting
they do
mad,
it like
I'm not
once or
getting
twice and
angry,
it
I'm just
doesn't
gonna let her
work.
figure out how
And then
to
people are
earn
like, well,
that.
this isn't working.
Totally.
And, that's not how dog training works. There are very few behaviors like this that are the wrong thing to do is so self-rewarding that you can fix in 1 or 2 reps. Dogs don't learn like that, especially if you have a dog that's been rehearsing, pulling at the door, pulling at on the leash
That's so
for
important.
weeks or months. It is not going to be a quick fix. And if you hear that, that's a lie. It's not, but it absolutely is fixable. You just have to be patient.
She looked at me a little quicker that time too. Shall we try it again? Oh yes, all right.
Oh, that was a good girl.
Oh, a little bit of pulling. Try
And
that
I
again.
love,
Much
you know,
better.
maybe
Much
this is the
better.
thing.
We're gonna try.
If you're struggling with walking on leash, you need to be aware of the fact that taking your dog for a walk and teaching your dog to walk are 2 totally different things. And if Carol had put in all of this effort and she'd stepped out the door and Freya had dragged her away and Freya got to go on her long walk, what's Freya really learning? I can go through a couple reps and then we'll do my thing. But
Yeah.
Carol's insisting that, listen, buddy, we have to do it the way I want us to do it. I have high expectations, which is something we insist on at McCann Dogs. We have really high expectations of you and your dogs, and the choices that you make. And this is what Carol's doing, and this is where the dog starts to learn. I'm gonna have to put in a little bit more effort. I'm gonna have to show a little bit more self-control.
That again. Notice how fast she looked at me. She didn't even try to get out. She stopped and she looked at me very quickly, and she went out much calmer that time. You can see she's still excited about going out. Last time she didn't blast out. Even on the R.E.D.S, she was a little better. This time I'm actually going to reward that choice. If she gives it to me again, when I open the door, really, when she opens the door, I'm actually going to, I got a treat hidden here. And if she does that same pause and look,
Look at this.
Good girl.
Yeah.
yes, get that girly. And I'm gonna throw back inside the house. So letting her know that was a fantastic choice. It's also a safety issue.
Look at this.
I don't want my dog thinking the door's open, they should just blast out. She's
smart.
a good girl. All right. Yes, and now she's not blasting through. All
there
right.
you go.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great example when we were doing that with instructor Carol. It was really nice. It really demonstrated how maintaining a high level of expectation and not giving up is important. Now, what does this mean for you and our acronym for the night? Well, is your dog ready? Can your dog get to that point where you can get out the door without turning into a sled dog owner? You know, can you get outside without being dragged down the street? Because if you can't get through the threshold, then your dog's not ready for walking training. You know, you need to do some more reinforcement.
I think what people need to know too is that exercise that you saw there, like what a lot of people do is they think very broad. So they think, well, that has to do with coming out of the door. What does that have to do with taking my dog for a walk on a leash?
That's a good point, yeah.
And it has everything to do with it, because what that dog's learning right now is what we call leash respect. When the dog understands when the leash is attached, regardless of the scenario that they're in, whether they're sitting, standing, you know, you're walking, you're running, you're taking a nap, doesn't matter, you're picking up their poo, whatever you're doing, they need to keep the leash loose. So this exercise is actually an excellent one to master, to work on, in conjunction to teaching your dog to walk on a leash, or before you teach your dog to walk on a leash. This actually has all kinds of things to do with leash walking, because if they can learn to be respectful there, they're going to be better at walking on a leash. So this is all tied together. Sometimes it's hard to see big picture though.
In our R.E.D.S acronym, R, is your dog ready? The E, we need to talk about, you hear us talk about this a lot. Is your dog, is it the right environment? Is this the only exercise your dog is getting? Those are two things that can make a massive difference in your leash walking training. The exercise thing, Kale's talked about a little bit. You know, you must be doing, if you have a dog in training, you're trying to train leash walking, and you have a young dog, they're going to need way more exercise than a walk. That's why we have several videos on the channel that say, exercise your dog without walking. It's not that we don't want you to do walking. What we don't want is you to do crappy walking. We want you to be great. And that might take a little bit of playing tug, playing fetch, doing some trick training, doing some exercises that have nothing to do with walking on a loose leash. Because if you do those before and maybe after, maybe you do those, you do a short walking session in your driveway, in your hallway, in your lobby, wherever, and then you break it off early so that you can go do some more exercising with your dog, then your dog is getting enough exercise. And, you know, a dog that's got lots of exercise is likely to make better choices.
Absolutely.
Less likely to make bad choices, I should say.
Yeah.
We talk about the environment. I know someone had mentioned in the chat that as soon as they get outside, their dog's great at the threshold, going out the door, but as soon as they get outside, the dog goes completely crazy. It's just, they've lost all of that attention and focus. What you might need to think about is this the right environment? When we have a puppy, we will...
E is for environment and exercise, Flicka.
Yeah, both. Yeah. Environment and exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we have a dog in training, we'll go places, deliberately go to places that we know are low distraction environments. And I know people will say like, oh, I live where I can't find anywhere. Look harder. You know, we'll go
get in the car and
That's
drive.
right. That's it. You know, when we were training in downtown Toronto, we used to do lots of shows in downtown Toronto long before the virus that shall not be named. But we would go there and we'd love it if we had a young dog, because we'd go away from wherever the super congested, busy areas were, and we could do, it's socializing. You might think of it as socializing, but when we say socializing, that doesn't mean interacting with other dogs. That means experiencing the world. You know, maybe
learning to focus on us and stay attentive to us, and wanting to pay attention when there's things going on, learning to respond to their name when there's other dogs over there, learning to sit on a loose leash when there's people walking by. That's what we mean by socialization, teaching your dog to have well-mannered behaviors around things that are going on.
Absolutely.
People, dogs, sounds, places.
For sure. And this is where I might find, you know, the wall of a pharmacy or some store, doesn't matter what it is, a straight long wall, and I can do 15 steps of walking. And my dog's in at my side. You know, I found an area that there's some noise and some distractions behind us, but I found a location where my dog isn't completely focused on those things. That's what I want you to think about. Is my dog struggling? Well, is it because I'm overwhelming them with distractions? Try to find a location where you can be successful. Environment, exercise, and equipment. Are you using the right equipment for your dog? Let's talk a little bit about some of the things we like, some of the things we do not like for walking training.
Yep. So when we're training our dogs to walk and we're actually actively teaching them not to pull, we highly recommend that you train on either just like a regular flat buckle collar or something like a gentle leader head halter. Now there's a lot there's a lot of head halters out there on the market, and we have learned about them all, and in our opinion, by far the best one is the product Gentle Leader. There's a number of reasons why, but one of the biggest reasons is it's the easiest. It fits the best. It works the best. And it's the easiest to wean off of later on, should you wish to do that. Or just a regular flat buckle collar. The items that we do not recommend to use would be a harness. They are not very good for teaching your dog how to walk on a leash, because when our leash is attached to the back of the dog, or even worse, the front of the dog, you know how I feel about front harnesses.
Yeah, they're not good.
Is that you don't have control over the dog's head. Harnesses, the dogs can pull really easily with a harness, and although it distributes the weight more easily and it's easier for us to hold a dog that's on a harness for sure, it doesn't allow you to give the dog good information and use the leash effectively in the way that we do our training. So, my dogs have harnesses, but they also have leash respect. So when I put a harness on my dog and I attach a leash, there's no tension in the leash. The dog already has understood not to pull. So we don't recommend that you use a harness. In our training methods also, we do not believe in pinch collars, chain collars, prong collars, e-collars, anything like that. That's not in our lane of training. So we would suggest a flat buckle collar or a Gentle Leader.
The E, so we got R, is your dog ready? The E, environment, exercise, equipment, those three things, be mindful of those. And I know some of you guys are probably like, well, I guess I've got to get out my notepad to write all these things down. And that's good. I want you to be that intentional about learning tonight. D, are you training a good distance? I talked about this before. Maybe I just want to get 15 steps of success with my dog. Maybe my dog's really early in the training, and I know a lot of people who think like, okay, I'm going to go around the block and I'm going to be training my dog to walk the whole time. I don't want you to frame your training sessions like that. I want you to think, I'm going to insist on great leash walking for however long it takes and however far we go. In fact, I want you to think about, I'm going to insist on great leash walking training for however long it takes, but I'm only going to go 20 or 30 feet at the most. Let's talk a little bit about that positive reinforcement for your dog, especially, and not like having a stretch goal might be the block.
Yeah.
But the first, while you're training leash walking, I don't want you to think about the distance at this point.
Think about the time. Think about the time rather than the distance. With the youngest dog that we trained, we had a young border collie that we trained for a little while, and she was really distracted by cars initially when she was young. She wanted to chase them, and so to take her for a walk around the block was very challenging when she was 5-6 months old. She was really focused on any cars that would be moving. So for her, I spent a lot of time walking up and down our driveway, and our driveway is not really that long. I did a lot of loops, a lot of changes of direction, loop-de-loops. I had all kinds of crazy distractions out on the driveway. I would put some bowls of food. I would put her favorite toy. I would make Ken come out and bounce a tennis ball or like shake a toy around, and I worked on working through those distractions with her until she was a complete rock star. And then I would say, okay, I'm going to go down the street and I'm going to go to my neighbor's driveway, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to come back. And if that was successful, I would go a little bit more. But what you don't want to do is set out on your walk and then be like, oh gosh, this is a disaster. Now I need to just get back. So it's better to just start small and then build distance as your dog shows you that they're ready. And they show you that they're ready by the behavior and the focus that you're getting from them.
Yeah, it's so hugely important. And I think if you take nothing else away from tonight, that may be the most important thing, that you're not going for these 2-block walks, that you're not going to try to train through some of these challenges that you might have, to focus on great leash walking over a shorter period of time. So we've talked about distance. We've talked about time, which is the duration. Distance and duration, those things together. All of our training is focused on having a motivated dog. Everything we do is about teaching your dog to want to listen, so that they'll choose you over a cat, over another dog,
changing
over
what they
somebody
find
else.
valuable.
Absolutely. And it's so, when you're thinking that, like sort of the base level, like that's my goal with my dog. I want to teach them that I'm way more valuable and important than everything else.
Yeah.
Your dog training world opens up. The things that you can do really totally changes, because you have so many more opportunities, because your dog's naturally checking in with you.
Yeah.
This is actually something, we'll get a dog for a video, or we'll get a dog, a student will hand us a dog and say like, oh, can you show me? and the dog listens the whole time. And people think like, oh, it's a trained dog.
Stop using trained dogs in your
Right,
videos.
exactly. But what that dog's never learned
not
is
trained.
that's right. We've shown that dog from the very beginning that we're worth listening to, and they don't have an opportunity to ignore us.
A lot of it is just how you do it. It's
Right.
how you hold the leash. It's how do you present your body to the dog? How do you speak to the dog? What do you allow them to do right off the bat? Like Ken's always telling me when we get demo dogs for our YouTube videos, he's like, stop engaging with the dog.
I can't even give the dog to
No.
Kale until like we're literally start rolling.
About to hit record.
Because it's because she has such good information and like she has the right energy for the dog that even the brattiest wildest dog is like, okay, I can see that you want me to listen and I'm ready.
It's like you're supposed to be bad.
yeah. So it's amazing what can happen when you give a dog great information.
But you can learn to do that too.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
I'm a professional dog trainer. I've been doing this a long time and I have a knack. But you can learn how to do it too because it's how you give the information and it's about how you control your dog and it's about all of the things. And I know how to not put the puppy in a scenario where it's going to make mistakes. We also know how to put the puppy in a scenario so it will mistake, so we can get YouTube videos for it. But it's really important.
I just thought of something. And it's not that complicated. You just need to be practiced at it. I want you to, if you're watching this thing right now, I want you to take your pinky finger on one hand and then your thumb up on the other. Pinky finger and thumb up. Put down the remote, put down your phone.
What are you doing?
Get both hands free. Okay, you ready? Now switch it. Now switch again. It's not that complicated, but the first time you do it, you're like, oh, this is kind of awkward. Once you've done it a few times, all of a sudden it becomes natural. It's just something that you can do.
Fancy.
Yeah, but this is what we're talking about. These aren't complicated steps. You just need to understand the why, and you need a bit of practice. And a great place to get that, understand the why, and get some practice is in our life skills program.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about life skills and why it might be good for someone who's struggling with leash.
Yeah, I do think it's good to talk about life skills because I think, a lot of you have hopefully found us because you watch our YouTube videos and we have so much amazing information on our YouTube for free to watch to learn how to train your dog. But to be perfectly honest, it is just a snippet. It is a very, very small piece that we do in the big picture of our programs.
Yeah.
Because really it's about structure. It's about understanding how to set the dog up to be successful and going through a series of progressions to get to the final goal, which is, in some cases, not pulling on a leash, coming when they're called every single time, not jumping up on people, learning to go and lie down and relax for an extended period of time so that maybe you don't have to use your crate all the time, or your dog can lay calmly when you have guests over or people come to the door. So it's all of those things. So in our life skills program, it's online. So if you are in Israel, if you're in Malaysia, if you're in England, if you're all of these different places, you can train with us every single day. You literally can start tomorrow. It's open for registration all the time. But it is, of course, there's videos for you to watch and to follow along with. But it's not just that. It's an 8-week program, but along with the video lessons, you're also going to get access to an amazing team of instructors 6 days a week. 24 hours. So we have students from over 50 countries at this point. So even if you're in a completely different time zone than us, you'll still get access to instructors. We have a really good system that we do. If you're...
And this is where the difference happens. There's all sorts of information out there. I could download a manual, watch a video on how to put a car together, but wouldn't it be a lot faster, safer, better if I had a mechanic to help me?
Absolutely.
There's just so much information out there and you don't know which one's right for your dog.
Yeah.
This is exactly where we've seen so much success with the life skills instructors and the puppy essentials instructors is because you could say to Albert, hey Albert, let's do this, try this instead of that other thing, and that small change makes a huge difference.
Well, speaking of Albert, he's a dog named Willow, and he can send in a video and we can see Willow perform and we can say, hey, loosen your leash or say yes a little faster or be careful you don't reward this or whatever. So it's really, really helpful. But last but not least, if you like these types of train station calls, we actually do weekly Zoom calls with our groups as well, where we do deep dives on all kinds of different things. So it's very, very, it's a very comprehensive course and it is so helpful. So if you do have a dog that's over 5 months old, check it out. See if it's something that you think would be helpful for you and your family's dog. And if you have a dog under 5 months, we have another course called Puppy Essentials for puppies.
We've talked about, is your dog ready? We've talked about environment, exercise, and equipment, R&E. We've talked about Distance, are you training the right amount of distance? The duration, are you training at dinner time? This is one I thought I'd throw in there. I must have been hungry when I was coming up with this. If you're training at dinner time,
Or
your
you were
dog's
just stretching for D's.
more likely to be motivated to listen, to they're a little bit more focused because you're using their food, their meal, to actually train them.
They're hungry.
So training at dinner time, training at any meal time, you'll see that in all of our videos.
Be careful about saying that word too loud.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But training at a mealtime will really get some great attention from your dog. So focus on distance, duration, dinner time. Don't forget that last one.
Mm-hmm.
S, using your voice. What are you saying? What are you saying in speed? Using your voice, using speed in your training, in your leash walking training. Guys, this is a game changer. This is such a huge thing. I was at the hall today, I think, with some of those leashes that you guys might be buying tonight, hand stamped by this guy. I was listening to some of the grade 1 students who were working on their leash walking. And I heard some of our instructors saying things like, "Oh, a little faster. Just you got to
use your voice."
Yeah, use your voice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Talk
in between
to
the
him.
rewards. So why use your voice right now? This time of year, if you're in the northern hemisphere, is a great reason to start using your voice in your training. We start using a lot of food. We use a lot of food as a reward. We load it up front. We teach the dog that they'll get a reward with food if they make the right choices. We don't want to have to use food forever. Using your voice and what you say in your training between those rewards can start to stretch out the rewards so that you don't have to always be using your food to reward your dog. So using your voice, what you say, can keep your dog connected. Maybe you're walking out on the street, you see another dog coming. Maybe your dog's like, "Oh, I love barking at other dogs." What if you were to use your voice and get your dog's attention and reward them before they chose to bark, before they chose to pull? What would happen then? What sort of attention do you think you'd get? Your dog's like, well, I might be able to go and interact with that other dog, but if I turn my head and I pay attention and I stop pulling on the leash, it's a sure thing. Mm-hmm. What does that training look like for you? Using your voice can be very powerful. Walking at a good speed. Turns and speeds. Do you spin? Speed, spin. Think about that when you're walking around. Absolutely. This is, actually, I might have a clip for this. Using some of that motion, using turns in your training can be massively helpful.
Change of direction.
Totally.
Yeah.
When you go for a walk, does your dog know where you're going? Let me know in the chat. As soon as you get out on the street, are we like, well, we're going to the park again?
Going to the park.
Yeah. That can be really challenging for your leash walking training if your dog's like, okay, I'll get us there. Because I know where we're going. What about turning those 180-degree turns where I've done walking training before with a dog that probably was 20 feet. Full-grown adult dog might have been 20 feet because every time she started to pull, I did a 180-degree turn. And then once she started to notice, yeah. And this is, we're not talking about spinning around in a circle or go until you get dizzy because you want to control. Maybe you lure the dog into a sit so that you can kind of reset. But using those turns in your training can be massively helpful because your dog starts to learn that, well, that's funny. Every time I start to pull ahead, he heads the other way. Well, why would I want to pull ahead then?
Maybe I should pay attention to where he's going because he's unpredictable.
100%.
Also, he's cheering me on and he's making funny sounds and that's exciting. And so I want to look at him.
Using his voice.
Yeah.
That's right. What is he saying right now? Absolutely. Along with spinning.
Yep.
I want to go to this video. I think it might be helpful for some of you guys. Maybe you haven't seen it. Maybe you've seen it already. Let's break it down, talking a little bit about motion, about speed and turns in your training.
Another really common challenge that people have, and it makes it more difficult for their puppy, is they don't know what the right pace of walking is. It's pretty easy for you as a handler to get focused on all of the technique when you're teaching this skill. You're trying to keep the leash loose. You're trying to reward in a specific position. You're trying to keep an eye out for all of the distractions in the real world. So it's not uncommon for people to really slow down their pace. And the problem is that this actually makes it a lot harder for your puppy. What you need to do is find the right pace, and it's not too fast, and it's not walking too slow. But
yeah, this is genuinely a dog who would pull on leash if it weren't for good information. She would also be so stimulated by everything going by that it would be really difficult to be in a distracting environment. So choosing somewhere like this, you can see there's not a lot of people around. She kills on a sidewalk. There's not a lot of people around. She's chosen a time that she knows the park isn't super busy. But this is an idea ideal learning environment for this puppy.
It's a pace where your dog's paying a little bit more attention to you. I want you to walk like you're late for something. The great part about this is that your dog finds it motivating and entertaining if you're walking at a very specific pace, and you're way more likely for the next 10 or 15 feet to get that great attention. The other thing it does is it doesn't allow your puppy to discover those things on the ground, or be so focused on a leaf that blows by, or a car
I'm not really
that...
giving her an opportunity to go and get distracted, because I'm engaging with her so much that she's sort of like, whoa, there's a lot happening here, I better pay attention.
Drives by off in the distance, and it allows you to really maintain some of that attention for these short walking sessions. So make sure you pick a good pace. While we're talking about attention and focus, don't be afraid to use turns in your walking on leash.
If you're wondering where
by spinning, you're not spinning around in a circle. You're just doing like an about turn, like a 180
degree turn. If you are wondering where those videos are from, I've actually linked them, I think, in the description of this video of the live stream. So if you want to watch those after or now or whatever, both the video with Carol and this 5 mistakes people make with puppy leash walking, those videos are available in the chat or in the description.
Training. This is a really nice way for those dogs that love to charge out. If your puppy charges ahead all the time, you can just do a 180 degree turn and head back in the other direction. Now, at the beginning of this training, you can reward your puppy as they get back in at your side.
She's busy, so that change of direction really kept her on her feet.
For sure.
Going in a straight line. Well, she just was like, oh, don't worry, Mom, I know where we're going. And everything is just so exciting to her. So the changing of direction was highly effective for this dog. And we see it be very effective for many dogs. So the changing of directions, the talk, and then the lots of rewards when she was in position really, really helped her to have a better understanding of what I was expecting of her.
Well, and I'll tell you, one of the most common mistakes that you might be making is we talk about using your voice and changing directions. Do you do that
at the right time?
That's right. Do you use your voice after your dog started pulling, or are you doing it preemptively to get some attention so that they can maintain a loose leash, so that you can get a reward in, so that you can change direction, in a way that your dog maintains position? Timing is so important, and if you wait too long and only use your voice when your dog started pulling, when they've already fixated on that thing and they've left you mentally, they've left you, now physically they've left you. If you wait that long, you're gonna lose. You have to use your voice a little earlier. Give them, maybe it's their name, maybe it's whatever that voice might be, and then you can reward them for making that great choice, because that's really what we want. Let's go back to the video.
Get into that nice walking position. But what it does is it keeps it fun for your puppy. It allows them to, they're not really sure where you're going, so they're checking in with you more often. You wouldn't want to turn into a spinning top if your puppy's constantly charging ahead. But for those puppies who walk in at your side some of the time and then they start to lead ahead just a little bit.
She's doing so good.
Look at how cute that dog is. Yeah.
180 degree turn is a great way to get more focus back on you.
Bum.
Very cute. Okay. What do you think? Is it starting to make sense? Like, is it starting to, kind of come together? Because these are some of the steps. I mean, we're just sort of scraping the top of what it means to be leash training your dog. And specifically, we're giving you some pretty general rules for dog training. But this is, I do like these live streams. I do like the train stations because they get to talk to you about a little deeper. We can go a little bit deeper with that training, a little bit deeper understanding. And from what I can see in the chat, you guys got great questions, got all sorts of interesting stuff. So that's been really, really helpful. What do you think was the most challenging leash walking training you've done with one of your personal dogs? Is there one dog that stood out, and what was the game-changing training choice that you made?
I think it was probably Euchre. I think it was the last dog that we had, because out of all of the dogs, she was the most stimulated when we were out around distractions. And that was also paired with not being super motivated by food. So, that was a challenge. If there was a car and I had even high value food, she was like, meh, I'd rather have the car. So I had to be a little bit more creative. Yeah. I'd implement some toys into my training. I had to make sure I went slowly with where I was practicing. She was up and down the driveway for a long time, so she was probably the hardest one, but it was an exercise in patience. But she figured it out. She figured it out. I used a gentle leader with her too. That helped immensely.
With that said, Erica Anderson dropping the $9.99 super chat. Yeah. Great question about the gentle leader. And you know what's so great about this, Erica, is you're thinking differently. A lot of people would say, like, well, I mean, it's a thing, it's not working, do I need to attach it differently? Do I manage? And Erica says, let's grab this. Erica asks, when you use a gentle leader, do you manage the leash any differently? And if so, how? I love this question.
Smart question.
Yeah.
Really good, Erica. No, we don't really handle the leash any differently than we would if it was attached to a flat buckle collar. But one thing that is really important, whether you're using a collar or whether you're using a gentle leader, but even more important with a gentle leader, is that you want to try and keep the leash loose as much as you can when you're directing, when you're walking your dog and when you're teaching your dog. Because what happens is when the leash tightens, that the dog feels the pressure of the gentle leader behind their head. It doesn't hurt the dog or anything. But what happens is they start to learn to only walk well when they feel that pressure of the gentle leader. It's the same thing with the collar. If you're always walking your dog on a tight leash, the dog sort of learns to get used to that feeling of the tight leash. And then when it's loose again, the dog's like, oh, I'm free. I can just do whatever I want. So you want to try and have a loose leash when you're walking. But other than that, in terms of like how you would redirect the leash, how you would hold the leash, all of that is going to be exactly the same.
Absolutely. I love that question. Gentle leader, and I was going to mention as you're finishing up some of the conversation about euchre with Deegan, the right equipment made a big difference. I had tried everything because I was just trying to pay some money for something to fix my problem. And then my vet mentioned to me, he said, listen, you need to go over here to McCann Dogs. I can't hardly even assess this dog. And I wasn't super jazzed about it, to be honest, at first. I thought it's going to take a lot of time, and I didn't really know if I was going to be excited about it. And then I got over there, and I got excited about the process. Deegan started to listen. This black lab, who for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, was dragging me down the street with my neighbor saying like, oh, it's walking coo, and all that kind of stuff. It was just so frustrating. I was almost embarrassed. And I went to dog training, and I started to see results. She was actually looking to me for information. She wasn't dragging me across the hall. And the big change that I make is understanding that, you can put in some foundation, like really build that foundation up so that you can build up as high as you want. But for me, that was an equipment change. I had to switch to the gentle leader, and it's like power steering, honestly, for your dog. It just gave me so much more control. But it also allowed me to work on that foundational stuff, to really understand, was my dog ready? Well, she wasn't until I really sort of pivoted and looked at things differently. But it made such a big difference for me. Now, I wanted to mention again, Dan Losselinks Luton has dropped for 24 hours. We have the
Hockey Nurse. The hoodies are in the store if you like this hoodie.
Absolutely, yeah. McCannDogs.store. You can probably drop.
There's lots of great hoodies.
Store in the chat.
This one's very comfy, and it's long, which is nice.
This is cute. Little puppy looking over the edge there. I think it's two different thirds. Dan has dropped a link for you guys. If you go to McCannDogs.store and you go and you type train ticket, you'll get 15% off any of our leather leashes. We go 3/4 all the way down to 3/8.
Love those leather
when we talk about leash walking training, we were talking about the R.E.D.S acronym. It's R. Is your dog ready?
Ready?
Do you have a solid foundation? Ready. That's agility people will be like, oh, that sounds familiar. Environment for the E, environment, exercise, equipment. For the D, distance, duration. Is it dinner time? Is it dinner time? Because that's going to be helpful. And for the S, what are you saying? Are you using your voice? Are you picking a good speed? Do you spin? We mean 180 degrees. I don't mean like a pirouette.
He was just pulling for S's.
That's
there,
right,
guys.
yeah. I was really
He's
looking
like,
for
how do I
something.
make turn around sound like an S?
That's
Wait
right,
a second.
yeah.
Spin.
I thought swivel. I almost went with swivel.
Oh.
But it's felt to me like it's
Swivel.
the wrong thing. I think spin was the right way to go with that 180 degree turn.
I don't even know how to act. I don't even know how to swivel. Back and forth?
I think so.
Is that what swiveling is?
Yeah, it didn't feel right to me.
It's not a word I use often.
Amazing. So I hope that we've had an opportunity to enlighten you, for you to look differently at your walking on leash training. And I hope we've motivated you to get out there and do more with your dog. I'll tell you, it's going to be the game changer. That's where you're going to learn more about your dog. That's where you're going to really start to figure things out. If you want personal feedback, if you want a professional dog trainer, at your beck and call to answer questions, then join us here in the Life Skills program. I think it's
fun.
! Life Skills, or go to McCannDogs.com and check out our online training. Now, are you good with that?
I'm great with that.
So am I. I'm excited for you guys to get out there and get training.
I might even go take my dog for a walk now.
You
I feel
should.
inspired.
That's what I want. The sort of excitement with all the teaching, all of the training, all of the things that we've done tonight. The rest, my friends, well, that is up to you.
Oh, yeah. Oh. live streams to educate you, but more importantly, to motivate you. You can have the dog that you've always wanted, but it's just going to take you a little bit of work.
I would know because I was just like you. Long before I became a dog trainer, I was a frustrated dog owner, but the skills that I learned at McCann's changed my life. Now we have hundreds of videos here on our YouTube channel to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member.
But if you want someone to guide you through the dog training process, then you should check out our Puppy Essentials program for puppies under 6 months. If your dog is over 6 months, then you could join our Life Skills program, and our instructors are going to help to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible in a really supportive environment.
Now, all of the knowledge about dog training in the world won't help you to be successful unless you get up and you start training. The real question is, what are you going to train next?
Happy training.